Hold on to your seats because Jaguar Wright has just stepped up to the microphone once again. And this time she didn't just poke the bear. She blew up the entire forest. Just when you thought the internet couldn't possibly get any more chaotic after the federal takedown of Diddy, Jaguar has dropped a nuclear-grade bombshell targeting none other than the Indie Club, King himself, Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. For months, 50 Cent has been online acting like the untouchable, ultimate internet troll, laughing from the sidelines as other empires crumbled. But according to Jaguar's latest, completely unhinged viral interview, 50's Teflon armor has officially shattered. We are talking about allegations so dark, so structural, and so deeply embedded in the industry's hidden power dynamics that fans worldwide are left completely paralyzed in shock. Is 50 actually the master manipulator he claims to be, or is he desperately trying to cover up a secret life before the feds come knocking on his studio doors next? Grab your popcorn, turn up your volume, and lock your doors, because we are diving headfirst into the madness. The world of hip-hop has always been built on a foundation of carefully crafted illusions, calculated bravado, and alpha male personas designed to keep the public looking exactly where the elite wants them to look. But every now and then, someone comes along who threatens to tear down the entire theater, ripping the velvet curtains away to expose the rotting scaffolding underneath. Enter Jaguar Wright, a woman who has transformed herself from a late 90s soul vocalist into the single most polarizing, terrifying figure to ever hold a microphone in the digital age. For years, people tried to dismiss her. They called her bitter, they called her unstable, and they laughed off her late-night rants as nothing more than the desperate cries of an artist who got left behind by the mainstream machine. But then the dominoes started to fall. First it was the murmurs surrounding R. Kelly that suddenly turned into federal reality. Then came the jaw-dropping, earth-shattering downfall of Sean Diddy Combs, a cultural shift so massive that it sent shockwaves through every corporate boardroom from New York to Los Angeles. Suddenly, the people who were laughing at Jaguar Wright weren't laughing anymore. They were scrambling to delete their old tweets, scrubbing their Instagram feeds, and praying to the high heavens that their names weren't buried deep inside one of her infamous notebooks. Now, just when the industry thought it might be safe to breathe again while Diddy sits behind federal bars, Jaguar has redirected her sniper scope toward a brand new target. And this isn't just any ordinary target. She has set her sights squarely on Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, the self-proclaimed king of New York, the ultimate internet troll, and a man who has built his entire modern reputation on being completely unbothered, untouchable, and brutally honest. For the past year, 50 Cent has been having the time of his life online, mocking Diddy's legal woes, teasing documentary projects about the downfall of Bad Boy Records, and positioning himself as the righteous vigilante of urban culture. But Jaguar Wright is here to tell you that the righteous vigilante is actually a wolf in sheep's clothing, a master of misdirection who is using the Diddy scandal as a massive multi-million-dollar smokescreen to hide his own dark secrets. The streets are talking, the internet is buzzing, and the latest unhinged viral interview she just gave has completely thrown the entire entertainment landscape into absolute chaos. To understand why this is sending such a massive panic through the culture, you have to look at the incredibly strategic way Jaguar sets up her narrative. She doesn't just come out and make a claim. She weaves a web of historical context, drawing lines between the past and the present until you start questioning everything you thought you knew about your favorite childhood rap icons. She reminds the audience that 50 Cent's entire career was born out of extreme, calculated violence and psychological warfare. From the moment he dropped How to Rob back in the day, his entire business model has been about destroying his competition by exposing their perceived weaknesses. He took down Ja Rule, he dismantled Murder Inc., he publicly embarrassed Fat Joe, and he spent years making sure anyone who crossed him was completely neutralized socially and financially. But Jaguar is posing a terrifying new question to the public. What if all that aggressive, hyper-masculine energy was never actually about hip-hop supremacy? What if it was a protective shield, a highly sophisticated defense mechanism designed to keep anyone from looking too closely at what Curtis Jackson was doing behind closed doors when the studio lights went out? The core of Jaguar's explosive new allegation touches on a subject that hip-hop has spent decades trying to suppress, avoid, and ignore: the fluid, hidden sexuality of its most prominent leaders. She openly claims that despite 50 Cent's long history of making highly controversial, borderline homophobic jokes and mocking gay culture on social media, the rapper is secretly living a completely double life. She alleges that he is a closeted man who has used his public persona as a hyper-aggressive, street-certified gangster to completely deflect any suspicion away from his private desires. Now, if this was anyone else saying this, the internet would have laughed it off within 5 minutes. But because it is Jaguar Wright, and because the internet is currently hyper-vigilant about industry conspiracies, people didn't just laugh. They started digging. They started looking backwards, unearthing old interviews, forgotten diss tracks, and obscure industry rumors that suddenly sound completely different when viewed through this incredibly bizarre new lens. People immediately began pointing toward the long-forgotten testimony of street figures and former affiliates who tried to say the exact same thing years ago, only to be completely crushed by 50 Cent's massive media machine. Take the rapper Smuff, an old associate from the early G-Unit days who went on a series of underground interviews years ago, claiming that the inner circle of the group engaged in activities that were anything but gangster. At the time, Smuff's claims were buried, dismissed as the bitter ramblings of a jealous former friend who didn't get a record deal. But now, with Jaguar reviving the narrative on a massive platform, those old audio clips are resurfacing on TikTok and YouTube, racking up millions of views overnight. Fans are listening to the nuances of those old stories, realizing that the rumors didn't just start yesterday. Then you have Spiderlock, another former G-Unit West artist, who dropped subtle, cryptic hints during his own media runs, referencing strange encounters and uncomfortable locker room dynamics that made him distance himself from the brand. Jaguar explicitly references these men, claiming they were silenced, blackballed, and pushed to the absolute margins of the music industry because they refused to participate in the secret rituals of the elite. She describes a system where young, hungry artists from the hood are brought into these multi-million-dollar mansions, promised the world, and then subtly subjected to situations where their boundaries are tested. If you play along, you get the cars, the jewelry, and the radio play. If you blink, if you hesitate, or if you speak out, you are labeled a snitch, a crazy person, or a liability, and your career is systematically dismantled before it even has a chance to begin. But the internet didn't stop at old rap rivalries. The real online explosion happened when people started connecting Jaguar's new rants to the very public, highly theatrical relationship 50 Cent had with Hollywood actress Vivica A. Fox back in the early 2000s. Their breakup was one of the most toxic, loud, and petty spectacles in pop culture history, filled with back-and-forth insults that lasted for over a decade. But the moment that is currently setting the internet on fire is a specific television appearance Vivica made years ago on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen. When asked about her ex-boyfriend's comments regarding the television show Power, Vivica didn't just defend the show. She dropped a massive piece of shade that left the host completely speechless. She used the classic phrase, the pot calling the kettle black, and when pressed on what she meant, she hinted that 50 Cent had a lot of fruity tendencies himself, referencing a magazine cover he did with Soulja Boy that raised eyebrows at the time. Back then, the audience took it as mere celebrity gossip, a bitter ex-girlfriend taking a cheap shot at her famous former lover. But today, under the heavy influence of Jaguar Wright's investigative breakdown, that old clip is being analyzed like the Zapruder film, with thousands of commentators claiming that Vivica was trying to warn the world about the exact same things Jaguar is exposing right now. What makes this entire situation so incredibly tense is that Jaguar isn't just attacking 50 Cent's personal life. She is connecting him directly to the ongoing federal fallout surrounding Diddy. She claims that 50's sudden rise as the premier anti-Diddy commentator isn't a sign of his innocence, but rather a brilliant tactical move to control the narrative. According to her, 50 Cent knows exactly what kind of footage, what kind of documentation, and what kind of testimonies are floating around in those federal vaults, and he is doing everything in his power to position himself as Diddy's enemy so that if anything leaks, he can claim it was a fabricated retaliatory hit by Diddy's camp. It is a game of high-stakes psychological chess being played out on the public stage, and Jaguar Wright is standing right in the middle of the board, knocking over the pieces one by one, leaving the fans absolutely stunned as they watch the narrative unravel in real time. This intricate game of psychological chess is exactly where the narrative takes an even darker and more sinister turn, because Jaguar Wright refuses to let Curtis Jackson hide behind his curated internet persona for one more second. She openly declares that the entire public feud between 50 Cent and Diddy is the biggest theatrical performance Hollywood has ever staged, a multi-million-dollar distraction meant to keep the federal authorities and the public from realizing that they are essentially two sides of the same exact coin. To back up this mind-boggling claim, internet sleuths and supporters of Jaguar have started frantically re-examining the legendary, highly detailed testimonies of Gene Deal, the former personal bodyguard of Sean Diddy Combs. Gene Deal has spent the last few years going on every major podcast platform, breaking down the inner workings of Bad Boy Entertainment and describing the incredibly private, highly exclusive parties that took place in luxury hotel suites across Atlanta, Miami, and Los Angeles. In one of his most infamous and heavily dissected interviews, Gene Deal detailed a specific wild night in a presidential suite where Diddy had given strict, absolute orders that no one, under any circumstances, was allowed to enter the room. According to Gene Deal's vivid memory of that night, a famous rapper's cousin arrived at the hotel and demanded to go inside the room to rescue his relative from whatever compromised situation was happening behind those locked doors. When Gene Deal tried to physically block him, a massive, violent altercation broke out, resulting in the cousin being slammed onto a piano in the hotel lobby. The noise and chaos of the fight was so loud that the bedroom doors flew open, and out ran Diddy alongside a massively famous, highly hyper-masculine rap artist, both of them completely naked, scrambling for towels, and looking absolutely terrified that their private world had just been exposed to the security team. For years, Gene Deal meticulously refused to name the identity of that specific rapper, leaving a massive, tantalizing mystery hanging over the hip-hop community. But now, with Jaguar Wright confidently stepping into the spotlight and claiming she knows every single hidden file in the industry, the internet has connected the dots. Online forums, comment sections, and viral video essays are exploding with the theory that the naked rapper running out of Diddy's presidential suite was none other than Curtis 50 Cent Jackson himself. The speculation has reached such a fever pitch that fans are now going back to old clips of Diddy himself from over a decade ago, looking at how Diddy used to respond to 50 Cent's constant online trolling. In one rare, highly revealing interview, Diddy was asked directly why 50 Cent seemed so utterly obsessed with attacking his character and making jokes about his sexuality on a daily basis. Instead of getting angry, instead of threatening violence like a typical street figure, Diddy simply smiled, chuckled, and told the interviewer that 50 Cent actually loved him. Diddy went on to claim that the entire beef was fake, revealing a bizarre story from years prior at the late music executive Chris Lighty's wedding. According to Diddy, 50 Cent had walked up to him in front of industry insiders and casually offered to take him shopping, an offer that Diddy joked was something a man usually says to a woman he wants to pamper. When 50 Cent was later confronted with this specific shopping story on a separate radio show, he looked visibly uncomfortable, stumbling over his words, laughing nervously, and trying to claim he only said it because he thought Diddy needed some new clothes. At the time, the public laughed it off as classic hip-hop banter, but today, with Jaguar's voice echoing across the internet, that nervous laughter from 50 Cent is being interpreted by millions as the ultimate Freudian slip of a man desperately trying to cover up a secret intimacy. Jaguar Wright's explosive commentary doesn't just stop at old hotel stories and awkward wedding encounters. She actively accuses 50 Cent of being an absolute setup king, who has mastered the art of digital warfare to destroy anyone who gets too close to his actual truth. She alleges that 50 operates like a high-level intelligence agency within the urban community, utilizing a massive network of private investigators, tech experts, and corporate connections to dig up dirt on his rivals, his business partners, and even his friends. According to Jaguar, the moment 50 Cent senses that someone has information that could damage his reputation, he launches a preemptive strike on social media, using his millions of followers to bully, discredit, and humiliate them until the public views them as a complete joke. She points out how he handled Soulja Boy, how he continuously poked at industry executives, and how he has systematically built an empire of fear where no one wants to speak out against him because they are terrified of becoming the next target of his viral memes. But Jaguar claims that this reign of digital terror is finally hitting a massive brick wall, because the stakes are no longer just about internet clout or record sales. With Diddy currently sitting in a federal detention center, the entire landscape of Hollywood power is shifting, and a massive power vacuum has opened up. Jaguar boldly claims that 50 Cent's ultimate goal is not to clean up the music industry or save young artists from predators, but rather to completely eliminate Diddy and Jay-Z from the board, so that he can step in and become the ultimate, undisputed ruler of the entertainment world. She describes him as a potential new monster who wants to inherit the exact same corrupt system of control, blackmail, and leverage, rather than tearing it down for the greater good. She warns the audience that 50 Cent is currently playing a dangerous game of manipulation with major figures like Sean Jay-Z Carter, trying to position himself as the new corporate ally for massive events like the Super Bowl, while simultaneously holding a metaphorical gun to the heads of anyone who knows about his past. To make matters even more complicated, Jaguar connects this massive industry battle to 50 Cent's recent, highly publicized business ventures in Shreveport, Louisiana, where he recently launched the massive G-Unit Studios. Publicly, the move was celebrated as a historic moment for the city, with politicians handing him the keys to the city, and the media praising him for bringing jobs and Hollywood production to a struggling community. But Jaguar Wright completely flips the script on this heroic narrative, turning it into a chilling tale of corporate deception and local intimidation. She openly questions why Curtis Jackson told the public he built G-Unit Studios from the ground up, revealing that the facility was actually the pre-existing Millennium Studios, a place she claims she used to visit frequently years ago. She accuses him of buying a ready-made structure, rebranding it to look like a visionary, and using it as a massive tax haven and a private fortress where he can conduct his business far away from the prying eyes of the New York and Los Angeles media circuits. She even references local backlash from figures like rapper Hurricane Chris, who publicly criticized 50 Cent for spending $500,000 on an aggressive, military-style security team to keep the actual local hood and neighborhood residents completely shut out of his massive launch events, treating the community like a prop rather than genuinely investing in the people who live there. Part 3. This aggressive separation between the corporate elite and the actual community is precisely where the entire cycle of control becomes a dangerous reality, because Jaguar Wright claims that the deception goes far deeper than just real estate and studio branding. She boldly suggests that 50 Cent's sudden focus on building a private empire in Louisiana is directly tied to the massive, unfolding legal drama involving Diddy's alleged blackmail tapes and secret recordings. According to her theory, 50 Cent is actively trying to stay 10 steps ahead of the federal prosecutors by embedding himself so deeply into local politics and multi-million-dollar corporate developments that he becomes too big to fail, or at least too legally complicated to easily tear down. She poses a terrifying scenario to her viewers, asking them to look at the exact timing of when 50 Cent suddenly decided to delete certain aggressive posts about Diddy from his Instagram account. She claims it wasn't out of respect for the legal system, but because he realized that the federal subpoenas flying around Hollywood could easily land on his own desk, turning him from a vocal commentator into a material witness who would be forced to explain under oath exactly how he knew so much detailed information about Diddy's private parties years before the lawsuits were ever filed. The internet has gone completely wild trying to decode this specific part of Jaguar's rant, with fans pulling up old live streams and social media clips where 50 Cent openly joked about Cassie's landmark lawsuit against Diddy, before it ever became public knowledge. Jaguar openly asks why a man who claims to have no involvement in Diddy's inner circle was able to accurately describe specific videos, private encounters, and alleged blackmail footage on public platforms while everyone else in the industry remained completely silent out of fear. She argues that 50's deep knowledge of these events proves he was either in the rooms when these things happened, or he has been actively trading in the exact same black market of industry secrets and leverage that has kept the elite protected for decades. It is a chilling breakdown that completely shatters the image of 50 Cent as a righteous outsider, painting him instead as a hyper-calculating player inside a highly dangerous system where information is the ultimate currency and human lives are just collateral damage. To drive her point home about the hidden, toxic nature of power in hip-hop, Jaguar introduces a highly controversial historical analogy, comparing the modern music industry's internal dynamics to the ancient military structures of Roman and Greek soldiers. She explains to her completely stunned audience that the concept of hypermasculinity in urban culture is a carefully engineered lie designed to mask a deeply embedded culture of trauma bonding and control. She alleges that just like ancient armies used intense, private rituals and the breaking of personal boundaries to force soldiers into a state of absolute, unquestioning loyalty to their commanders, the highest levels of the entertainment industry use similar tactics to bind young artists to their corporate masters. According to Jaguar, when a major artist achieves an astronomical level of wealth and influence, it is rarely just because of their talent. It is because they have agreed to participate in or protect a dark cycle of mutual blackmail that ensures no one can ever betray the circle without destroying themselves in the process. She claims this is why 50 Cent can continuously mock his peers while remaining completely protected from real consequences, because he knows exactly which strings to pull and which names to drop to keep the entire house of cards from falling on his own head. But the narrative takes an even more chaotic turn when Jaguar directly addresses the fans who still believe 50 Cent is an independent, self-made hero who answers to no one. She aggressively dismantles this belief by pointing out his current relationship with major corporate entities, suggesting that 50 is desperately trying to position himself as the new wingman for billionaires and media tycoons now that Diddy is out of the picture. She references the massive, behind-the-scenes maneuvering for major cultural events like the Super Bowl, claiming that 50 Cent is actively trying to manipulate relationships with figures like Jay-Z to ensure his own business interests remain secure, while other empires burn to the ground. She describes a desperate, high-stakes scramble happening in the shadows of the entertainment world, where old alliances are being violently shattered and new, even more ruthless power structures are being formed overnight, all while the general public is kept completely blind, distracted by viral memes and orchestrated social media beefs. As the viral interview reaches its absolute peak, Jaguar turns her attention back to the legal troubles she herself has faced over the years, using her own experiences as a warning to anyone who dares to challenge the status quo. She claims that the constant media reports labeling her as unstable, or the sudden legal issues that seem to follow her every move, are part of a highly coordinated, multi-million-dollar smear campaign orchestrated by private investigators hired by the very celebrities she exposes. She alleges that 50 Cent has used his massive wealth to fund operations designed to follow her, watch her movements, and spread false narratives online to ensure that when she finally drops the ultimate truth, the public will dismiss her as a conspiracy theorist. But she defiantly tells the camera that her voice cannot be silenced, because the truth has a strange way of leaking out no matter how much money is spent to bury it in the dirt. The online response to this final explosive section of the script has created a massive, unbridgeable divide across the entire digital landscape. On one side, a rapidly growing community of supporters is treating Jaguar's words like absolute gospel, arguing that her past accuracy regarding the downfalls of major industry figures means she should be taken completely seriously now. They are flooded with a sense of deep skepticism, looking at 50 Cent's entire career, his aggressive business moves, and his sudden shift in tone with a brand new sense of suspicion. On the other side of the fence, millions of dedicated 50 Cent fans and mainstream commentators are completely dismissing the entire interview as a masterclass in unhinged delusion, pointing out the complete lack of physical evidence, the wild nature of the historical theories, and the fact that Jaguar has a long-running history of making massive, unsubstantiated claims against anyone who achieves a high level of success. Yet, regardless of which side you choose to believe, one undeniable fact remains. The velvet curtains of the hip-hop elite have never been under this much intense, violent pressure, and the conversation surrounding power, secrets, and sexuality in the music industry has officially changed forever. And that is the absolute mind-blowing web of secrets that Jaguar Wright has just laid out for the entire world to see. Whether you believe she is a fearless truth-teller exposing the darkest corners of Hollywood power, or just a master of creating chaotic internet conspiracies, one thing is completely undeniable. The era of untouchable celebrity illusions is officially over, and the empire of Curtis 50 Cent Jackson is facing its most intense public scrutiny yet. The internet is completely divided, the receipts are being dug up in real time, and the culture will truly never be the same again. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Jaguar Wright is dropping major facts about 50's hidden double life and industry power plays? Or has she officially gone completely off the rails with these wild allegations? Could 50 really be using the Diddy scandal as a massive smokescreen? Or is he just the ultimate internet troll being targeted by a bitter whistleblower? Sound off in the comments below and let me know your wildest theories. If you want to stay ahead of the game and never miss the real story behind the headlines, make sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications for more breaking truths.